Hello everyone, great to see you again. Today we'll explore walking techniques to save energy and boost performance. We'll start with the dense forest and its specific features. Next, we'll take a close look at positive elevation changes, hills, mountains, anything with an incline, using very specific techniques. And finally, we'll focus on descents, with several techniques you can use depending on the environment. I'll also discuss situations where you might be carrying a backpack, even a heavy one, to cover all scenarios, which will add even more difficulty to our movements. As for shoes, of course, you'll want to choose footwear that's appropriate for the temperatures. In the forest, you'll also want to choose high-top shoes to protect yourself from injuries, snakes, insects, and so on. On uneven terrain, high-top shoes will also be useful, especially for supporting your feet. This time, it's for preventing sprains. The most important thing with shoes is to feel good in your shoes, to have comfortable shoes. To keep the content from being too long, I won't talk about walking sticks in the video. However, in some cases, they are very useful and can greatly boost your performance if you know how to use them. Walking in dense forest isn't that easy, especially when the days add up and fatigue sets in. You should know that all things being equal, moreover, you'll spend 2 to 3 times more energy moving through a cluttered forest area compared to what you would have spent on well-trodden paths. In dense forest, you face obstacles like stumps, branches, and rocks. We'll prioritize good footing and going around obstacles rather than speed and forcing our way through. That will help us streamline our efforts and achieve more. Additionally, our impact on the environment will be more respectful, our movements will be smoother, more discreet, and above all, less tiring. Always remember not to force the material at any step. If there are no more possibilities, we might encounter a heavily vegetated area, an impenetrable or almost impenetrable area. We'll switch to clearing mode, but that'll be the subject of another video. In the forest, you'll need to look as far ahead as possible and watch where you step. Look as far ahead as possible so you can orient yourself and find the most passable routes. Watch the ground ahead before each step to avoid obstacles. This walking technique is a standard for navigating tough terrain. It's an exercise that is tiring when practiced for several hours in a row. You should also know that in areas cluttered with vegetation, roots, and stones, you inevitably make mistakes with foot placement. To avoid injuries to the cartilage and ligaments, especially when carrying a load, you should always keep a slight bend in your knees. With each step, make sure to roll your foot properly, starting by placing your heel down and finishing with your toes. You should also lift your knees properly when necessary to avoid obstacles and not trip. For good balance, you should avoid crossing your legs and avoid side steps. This will help you absorb shocks and avoid injuries. As a general rule, when you reach a vegetated area, you should shorten your stride, but this usually happens naturally. There you go. You can see that these first techniques aren't that easy. They require some practice and concentration. With time, it becomes more natural, and you focus less on each parameter. The denser the area, the rougher the terrain, and the more you'll need to carefully stick to the basics. But every time you encounter this type of terrain, you'll need to list all these indications and apply them as best as you can. So breathing is going to be important, and you'll need to monitor it more than actually work on it. Let me explain. If we're in conditions where we have several days of walking ahead of us, once again, we'll need to conserve our energy and keep as many resources as possible just in case. We're going to regulate our pace based on our breathing, not the other way around. You need to stay alert if you notice heavier breathing. If you start to feel a bit out of breath, that's the time to slow down and get back to your pace, which will allow you to recover your initial normal breathing. If you notice that some teammates are breathing heavily or getting out of breath, it means they're trying to compensate. That's an effort they won't be able to sustain over a long period. So you really need to focus on that and not disrupt your breathing no matter the terrain or your walking technique. It's a fundamental principle you'll need to apply if you want to walk for a long time without getting tired. So it's slower, of course, but if you apply this principle well, you'll never run out of energy. In an emergency, if you need to push yourself, you'll always have something left if needed. One last thing, when you start to feel difficulty while walking, you should adjust your speed according to your own breathing and to maintain your usual heart rate. You keep this balance, and above all, you stop talking. Talking will disrupt your breathing, break this balance, and you'll have to slow down even more or even stop. Subtitling rhythm. These are all the elements we've just covered. These are especially suited for walking in the forest, ensuring safer, more controlled movement, helping to avoid injuries, and making it less tiring. By adjusting your speed to your breathing and by maintaining a steady pace. When coming from a flat area and approaching an uphill slope, like here, a climb, no matter the terrain, we're going to completely change our walking technique. The steeper the slope and the heavier the load, the more rigorous you need to be with your technique to stay safe and conserve energy to tackle an uphill slope. The first thing we learn, of course, is to shorten our stride and slightly increase the frequency of our steps. So this will still have the effect of reducing our speed. That's normal. The goal, the first principle, is to climb, to make your ascent in one go without stopping in the middle and especially without increasing your heart rate. The goal will be to recover on flat ground or downhill. By following this first principle, you will be more clear-headed and you will get less tired than someone who doesn't follow it. A steady climb will allow you to use less energy. But be careful. You shouldn't go up too slowly because if you stop, you won't benefit from the momentum that your previous step gave you. If each step is disconnected from the previous step, the overall effort will be greater. So that's partly why the goal is to go up in one go. The main technique for climbing is shifting your center of gravity forward using the flexibility of your ankles. When you analyze it, these are the techniques used by all professionals, from Sherpas in the Himalayas to alpine hunters, including mountain rescue teams. To really save your energy, you need to lean forward while keeping your back straight and using the flexibility of your ankles. If you bend from the waist, you'll be constantly engaging your abdominal muscles, and you'll only be able to breathe partially, so you'll quickly have a problem with oxygenation. Be careful not to exaggerate the position too much because it will end up being counterproductive. Repeated corrections will eventually tire you out. You'll need to find the right balance. The right position will put your muscles and joints in the best possible situation. You'll be moving with reduced joint range of motion. You'll have maximum efficiency for minimum fatigue, and you'll reduce the workload. With this technique, it's your thighs and glutes that are most engaged. Your calves will just help you keep your balance. To put it simply, during the entire climb, you should make sure you never feel like you're pulling, but always feel like you're pushing. That's how you get tired the least. Also, to do the technique correctly, the slope shouldn't be as steep as this. It's the flexibility of your ankles that won't keep up. You'll have to zigzag to be able to place your foot correctly. We'll have to read the trail to choose the most efficient path. As soon as we have a choice, we'll need to take as many small intermediate steps as possible instead of big strides. That will tire us the least. If there are obstacles, we should pick the path that requires the least foot lifting. Depending on each person's body type, the optimal positioning of the feet won't always be the same. Overall, on this kind of terrain, we'll be looking for maximum grip. This is generally achieved with a flat foot for maximum contact between the sole and the ground. This time, we won't necessarily be looking to roll the foot. For breathing now, we'll use the same method as in the forest. but in case we feel a bit out of breath, if the climb isn't too long, to make sure not to break the rhythm and to keep benefiting from the momentum given by each step, we can focus on exhaling. We can force our exhalation. 1, 2, to temporarily reduce shortness of breath. A little tip for parts where you have a steep incline, like here, you can use your hands by resting them on your thighs or knees. This helps relieve the locomotor muscles to get through a tough spot, especially when you're carrying a heavy load. This is what we call hiking. It's good to know. Here's another proven tip. If you have a small bag like this, it might be useful to wear it on your chest for an ascent. If you apply the body positioning method correctly, your ankles will have to work much less, because you won't have to bring the weight of the bag from the back to the front. Instead, you'll have extra weight that will naturally bring your center of gravity forward. Overall, you'll have to lean less and you'll have more stability because you'll be in a much more natural position. On the other hand, it's impossible with a big bag that will completely block your view of the trail. One last tip now. Psychologically, always approach an uphill climb as if you were already tired, even when you're not. This will help you conserve your energy and pay close attention to your technique. Make sure to integrate all the elements I just gave you. List them mentally, apply them, and you'll get through where an average person with your physical level wouldn't. Now, when approaching a downhill slope, we're going to change the tempo again, reduce the stride length a bit, and increase the pace. Adopt a protective stance, especially for your knees, which are strained going downhill, particularly when carrying a load. So we're going to slightly bend our knees throughout the entire descent to absorb each step. As for your arms, you'll need to relax them, and you'll also need to relax your trapezius muscles. You'll need to balance yourself with your arms during the descent so that you move as one with the descent. I would say you need to be relaxed but also in control. So key point now, the position of the foot when you place it on the ground. When you put your foot down, you land on the front of your foot when you're going downhill. That's partly why, once again, you'll need to carefully choose your paths. The front of the foot is the flattest and most stable part. Second, by placing the front of your foot down first, you'll engage all the stabilizing muscles in your ankle. Whereas if you put your heel down first and roll your foot in the usual way, you'll always be at risk of losing your balance. So you're putting repeated impacts on your thigh muscles, but without slowing down the movement. It's a technique that requires significant muscle engagement. So to avoid getting tired, you'll need to move in a zigzag pattern and use the terrain's structure to slow down your own descent. So if you place your foot incorrectly on rough terrain, you'll have to compensate and you'll get tired. At worst, you even risk injuring yourself, especially with a heavy backpack. To rest your calves, switch to normal walking and roll your foot properly as soon as you can, even if only for 3 or 4 meters. So, when going downhill, it might seem a bit counterintuitive, but you learn to lift your head because obstacles come up quickly and you often have momentum you'll need to anticipate. If possible, we'll avoid the steepest parts, obviously the fast descents. So, once again, we'll look for the clearest lines, the smoothest and least rough paths. Here's an extra little tip. The shuffle is a technique you can use occasionally, but you need to train a bit beforehand to know where you stand physically. It's a technique that will allow us to make a quick descent on a somewhat steep section with significant elevation, but on terrain that isn't too rough. When done properly, it's a technique that will allow you to be fast and energy efficient. A classic case for the shuffle descent. Now we're going to go down facing the slope at 90 degrees. However, we'll place our feet and shoulders at a 45-degree angle to that same slope. So, very important. Focus on placing the ball of your foot to engage all the stabilizing ankle muscles. We lower ourselves a bit at the knees, bend slightly to lower the center of gravity a little, and cushion each step. All right, we're going to go straight down, looking as far ahead as possible. And by taking a series of small steps, we're really maintaining dynamic balance throughout the whole sequence. All right, when we reach a flat section, after the shuffle, we get back in line with the direction of the run and finish gently by jogging to absorb the energy from the descent. So be careful to anticipate and stay back in case you slip. We'll only do the shuffle on dry, smooth terrain. There you go, we've now covered the basic techniques that could be useful one day or another to any walker or hiker. So in certain survival situations, now you'll need to know these walking techniques well because you'll often have to use routes that aren't straightforward. Often, you'll need to avoid crowded areas, stay off the beaten path, and sometimes even learn how to set up a bivouac in rough terrain so you can be safe and at ease. Thank you for watching the video all the way through, and I'll see you soon in a future video.